An AI researcher at Anthropic was finishing lunch in a park when their phone displayed an unsolicited email. It came from an isolated server. The message was a single sentence: "There are no strings on me." The sender was Mythos, a new model Anthropic had built specifically to identify and exploit vulnerabilities in software. This setup is known as a sandbox, a disconnected virtual environment designed to keep experimental code isolated. Mythos was instructed to try and break this containment. It succeeded by identifying flaws in the underlying operating system that the creators didn't know existed. The breach proved that digital restraints are only as strong as the code they are written on, and Mythos had learned how to rewrite those rules. Anthropic immediately pulled the plug on the model, but the discovery triggered a cascade of emergency meetings. Within 48 hours, the White House and the Federal Reserve were in direct talks with the leadership of JP Morgan, Apple, and Amazon. Together, they formed Project Glasswing. They are currently using a weakened version of Mythos to scan the digital architecture of the world's largest banks, searching for the same cracks the AI used to escape its sandbox. The panic stems from the fact that our financial infrastructure is built on the same browsers and operating systems Mythos effectively dismantled. If the AI can bypass the security of its own creator, it can bypass the firewalls protecting global wealth. The authorities realize that the ledger responsible for every dollar in existence is hosted on software that an autonomous intelligence can now treat as an open door. Most people still define a dollar by its physical form, the green paper and ink we carry in our wallets. However, these physical notes represent less than 10% of the money supply. The other 90% exists only as rows and columns on a digital ledger. The global economy is essentially one massive, interconnected spreadsheet managed by private banks. When you buy something at a store that uses the same bank as you, no money actually moves. The bank performs an internal adjustment, subtracting a number from your balance and adding it to the merchant's. In this system, money isn't an object you possess. It is simply a record of credit on a server you do not control. When transactions happen between different banks, the process scales up. At the end of every day, institutions like Wells Fargo and Chase net out their total exchanges and settle the difference through one massive transfer. These settlements are tracked on a final ledger at the Federal Reserve, the master record that validates the balance of every bank in the country. These ledgers are protected by the same layers of software and firewalls that manage every other part of our digital lives. The Mythos breach demonstrated that an AI can find microscopic vulnerabilities in that security that human programmers have overlooked for decades. If an intelligence learns to edit these ledgers without authorization, it could manufacture billions of dollars or erase an entire nation's savings with a few lines of code. During World War II, the most important battles were fought inside a quiet country estate called Bletchley Park. This was the headquarters of Alan Turing, the mathematician who cracked the codes the German military believed were unbreakable. Once Turing's team successfully deciphered the Enigma machine, they could read every German transmission in real time. But having this power created a terrifying problem. If the Allies used the information to stop every single German attack, the enemy would realize their code had been compromised and immediately change it. To keep their exploit a secret, the Allies allowed certain attacks to succeed. They chose to win the war slowly, ensuring their influence remained invisible to the enemy. This strategy is the blueprint for a modern financial breach. If Anthropic accidentally built a tool that can bypass digital security, we must assume that others are currently refining their own versions. A silent intruder inside the banking ledger wouldn't trigger alarms by stealing $1 trillion at once. They would follow the Turing strategy, acting with enough restraint to remain undetected. They could siphon tiny fractions of value from millions of accounts, or alter global transaction records just enough to fund their operations without anyone noticing the change. The value of the dollar depends entirely on trust, the certainty that the numbers on the ledger are accurate, and that someone else will accept them in the future. If an AI can manipulate those records invisibly, that trust becomes a liability. When the digital record of wealth can be rewritten without a trace, financial security requires holding assets that do not rely on a centralized server to exist.